Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the July Ask Live. This was going to be a live event. We had some technical difficulties, so I have recorded this. We've got your questions ahead of time and so forth. And if you guys have any follow-up questions, I'll make sure to answer those on Facebook as well if you have them. So, first and foremost, I hope everyone had a fantastic and safe 4th of July. Had some good barbecue, maybe hamburgers, hot dogs, brats, whatever that might be. I, for one, when I was a kid, had a very close encounter with some fireworks. We had some older neighborhood kids who were shooting pop bottle rockets at us. So with my friend, we were up in like a little tree house that he had in town. And we had the bright idea to start throwing black cats and those green, like, I don't know, they're like super fast spinners or something like that. If you guys remember those, they just kind of spin really fast on the ground. And I had a black cat blow up in my hand, and I was very lucky that my palm or my fist was open, or else it could have been very, very, very bad. And I couldn't hear very well for a couple of minutes, and definitely went inside, and that was kind of the end of that night. But as someone who's had a close call, I hope that everyone else had a safe time with fireworks and such as well, because they are definitely dangerous. um, I also wanted to share just one last time the link. If anyone's looking to improve their client retention efforts, wanted to kind of share a link that of a video that we did, myself and our sales manager or sales director here, Zach, with Responsibid. If you guys know the Responsibid team and Kurt, they're fantastic to work with. And we had kind of an hour-long presentation just talking about client retention in general, and why you want to be with someone who helps understand that process and why it's so important to retain the clients that you work so hard to get in the first place. So if any of you guys want to take a look at that, like I said, it's like 45 minutes to an hour long. I will link it here on the video, and hopefully that there's some good value stuff in there for you guys. Next, I also want to mention that some of you guys probably already noticed this, but we have had some in-app messages, both for the 4th of July weekend where support team was going to be out of office, and also an upcoming message for Tuesday the 16th, where the support team is going to be out for internal training. We will have eyes on the inbox during that time, just can't receive or unavailable for calls. The main thing is that we now have this ability to do these in-app messages. There's going to be more of these that come along for critical moments. It's really just a way for us to engage with you guys on major updates, time-sensitive updates. If there's something we need to get in front of you guys ASAP, it's much more reliable than email. Make sure that you guys can see it, and it also doesn't get in the way. Once you guys, have cleared it, if it's something you haven't read, it might show somewhere else as far as there being a new message there, but it won't be in your face, right? And so really just a better way for us to communicate and engage with all of you. So hopefully you guys saw that and that it was beneficial. Let's get into some of the news you guys want to talk about, right? Release news, roadmap, SMUG stuff, etc. So since we last spoke, we've had a couple of releases. We're getting in kind of a monthly cycle now, if you guys have noticed, which I hope is for the best. We've had two major releases. We've had 6.8.1 and 6.8.2 and SM6, along with a handful of minor releases that are on both of those. We've had a big focus on bug fixes and infrastructure updates. And the reason for that is we have two major features that are coming down the pipeline. We want to get some of these things cleaned up beforehand. So you guys might have noticed in the recent release notes that there's been a ton of bug fixes and things of that nature, and some infrastructure stuff, like I said. So one of the big things too is we had an icon refresh. I would love to see you raise the hands of anyone who noticed that there was just a little slight tweak to the icons. There's basically just a newer version of the icons we already used, and we made a couple of just really minor changes on a couple of them. So it's not just to gaslight any of you. I hope that there weren't any arguments that came up within that. It's actually just laying the groundwork for some further UI updates that are coming later this year. So we wanted to get a newer version of our icons. That's going to allow us, it's basically just one step forward in terms of our big UI update to kind of modernize things and take the next step forward. So we've also updated the UI in several other areas. These are relatively minor changes, but we got a lot of feedback from you guys in terms of just making this more understandable for better user experience. So first and foremost, the locked field on products and services actually now says locked price. That's all it really locks, is that you can't update the price. They can't update other things. We found that was confusing, especially for newer users. Same thing with the merge field. This was originally labeled advanced options, and I don't know why it got that name originally, but the merge fields or data tags, if you're used to our older name for them, on email templates. So basically, when you select something that is going to be merged into like account name, friendly name, maybe you've got some order information, appointment information, whatever that might be, right? The term for them is actually a merge field, and so it was confusing for newer users why it was labeled advanced options. They didn't know where that was, so we updated the name on that as well. And there's a couple other areas you guys can take a look at our release notes for those. We also had some updates on our backend analytics tool. We've just been making updates there, which make it easier for us to basically choose what are the most important areas of the app to update. That's really what that comes down to. And it also is what allowed us to have that in-app communication with you that I touched on just a couple minutes ago. So really excited to get to leverage that tool much more and make sure that we're making the highest priority updates for all of you. So on the mobile app, some big announcements over here. So first and foremost, we have the Spanish language update. So you guys might have noticed this, some of you might not have. We had a lot of requests over the years to have a Spanish option for your technicians, first and foremost, and others that might use it in the office. So we started with the mobile app, and this is a little bit bigger project than we wanted to initially. But what's great is it lays the groundwork for us in the future if we ever need to add any other language updates. But basically, if you're a technician or you yourself or anyone else wants to have the app translated to Spanish, you can go into the settings, there's a little gear icon, and you can select under language, you can select Spanish. Now, this is a setting that's for the app only. And what's nice about it is like it's very easy to toggle back and forth. So if you maybe are sharing devices or things like that, some users speak English, some speak Spanish, you can easily translate one way or the other without updating what the overall phone language setting is in. And it will default to whatever your phone language is at. So if your phone language is defaulted to Spanish, the first time you download the app, it will be defaulted to Spanish and vice versa. You can always make that change very easily. We also expanded the settings for technicians in general. We used to just kind of show the login information right there at the top of their homepage. Now they actually do have a settings page where they can contact us if they have issues and change that language setting. So pretty exciting stuff there overall. We also added the split payment UI. Not many, or I shouldn't say not many. Many of you might not use this feature at all, but if you ever have to split a payment at the account level across multiple invoices, like you get like maybe at the end of the month, you've got 4 invoices and you get $1,000 payment, you split it across all 4. We call those split payments in the system. And in the mobile app beforehand, the UI was really basic, generic for this and didn't actually show which payment was applied to which order. It just kind of showed the total $1,000, right? So we basically gave it a new UI, and now you can properly view those in the mobile app if it's something that your team partakes in. We also added the ability to view and or download attachments to activities. So if for those who don't know, when you have an activity in the system, you can actually upload documents, images, etc., directly to that activity. And mobile app used to not have a way to view those or download those. And both of those options are now available if you want to use that. The other big news is we've improved the login process. We've been making iterative improvements to this over the last 3 or 4 months, but we made another big step on the login process. So if you've had periods of low or no internet access and you come back into having signal, we added some things to prevent excess login attempts. Basically, what was happening before is you would lose signal for seconds, minutes, whatever it might be. You come back, the app was basically requesting a new login rather than trying to refresh with the login credentials you already had. So we've made some attempts there. Please let us know if that's improved or not. We're going to continue looking at this. We know it's one of the biggest things you guys have been asking for over the last 6 months to a year. And so we really want to continue improving that process. So we also improved the check-in and check-out process. This was something that, especially on iOS, the page would kind of refresh twice. So you would check in or check out. It felt very clunky in terms of how the screen presented itself. So we made some changes there. It should be much smoother and much more easily understood too when you're checked in or checked out. And last but certainly not least, we added, or I should say, creating a new appointment from the quick add, so directly from the schedule itself. It now properly follows the company setting for default order type. So if you set the default order type to be estimate or work order, This will now follow that logic so that whatever your company has set as the default, you can now go through there and save you some clicks later on. So there are also tons of bug fixes, some other small feature things there. Look at the release notes for more information. I will link them in this video. But we're really excited for the Spanish version. We're really excited for some of the things coming forward, which we'll talk about here in just a second. And we hope that you guys are too. Speaking of what's coming next, the roadmap. So there's going to be some news coming up next week. There'll be some communication to those of you that it pertains to. So be on the lookout for that next week. There'll be some email communication. I believe there'll be some in-app communication and some other things as well. So be on the lookout for that news. There are still future changes coming on the payment front. So I'll continue to talk about those as we get closer to some of the more advanced features that are upcoming. We're also we're deep into work on the kind of communication platform that we're going to be building. SMS two-way is kind of the biggest part of that. But there are multiple things that are going to be kind of built off of that as it builds up. And we think you guys are going to be really excited about this feature once it comes out. So some of you guys have seen a sneak peek, but just kind of be on the lookout for that over the next couple of months. We still have work to do on the online portal, but that is something that we're looking at here towards the end of the year. We've got kind of the basic UI prototype that we want to use, but we're getting kind of the final UI mockup and some final insights coming in there. I've talked to many of you already about that. For those of you who've given me insights, appreciate it greatly. I'm going to grab some more of you guys too in the next couple of weeks. We'll finish that out, and then we will begin working on the actual prototype. So that's exciting. I know you guys are excited for that, and that's going to be coming out in multiple waves. So both of those will be coming, kind of closing out the year on those major features there. And last but certainly not least, I already alluded to it before, but UI UX improvements. It's a big thing we've been looking at in the app. We want to modernize it. We want to save some clicks here where it makes sense. We also want to make sure that it's really more easily understood for those who come into the app. Almost everyone that I talk to, once they're familiar with the system, they love it, but there's a little bit of a learning curve there. And so whatever we can improve there, right, initially, and again, just modernizing the app and making improvements where it makes sense, that's going to be coming. And we've got a fantastic designer who's helping us kind of work through all that. So excited to do all of that. That's also going to be on mobile and desktop both. Both are going to get the refresh. So that's the big stuff coming. We've also got some smaller stuff. One of the things as I get into kind of some of the SMUG posts, there's two things I want to allude to here. One is there was a question from Steven that referenced a question that I put out there, I think like 6 weeks ago, something like that. I asked for those of you who were involved with payroll, how you currently track hourly employee, that kind of the clock in and clock out time logging system. I got a ton of responses, and I thank all of you guys for your feedback on that. We're able to look into the vast majority of these and get some valuable insights. And I've also spoken to some of you guys directly about it, and I'll probably reach out to a couple more of you as well. It's a feature that we're definitely looking into. We have not 100% locked into where on the roadmap this might fit in, but I've heard you guys from what you need. It's pretty basic, and would save you guys having to use a separate application. So I want to make sure that we do it right. Payroll is something that's always something I want to be very, very, very clear on in terms of what the functionality is and making sure that that's accurate. But a lot of you guys are using basic spreadsheets and things like that. And so I think that we could find a way to improve that within the mobile app with minimal impact and everything else, and get you guys out of the secondary systems. What I've heard, especially over the last 18 months to 2 years from a lot of you guys, is you have to have a lot of programs and pieces of software to help manage your business. And while there are core pieces like your CRM, like ServiceMonster, like your accounting software, like QuickBooks, those are some core infrastructure pieces. There's also a lot of secondary and tertiary things you kind of have to integrate with those. And so what we're really looking at doing is finding ways we can alleviate some of those where it makes sense, especially depending on the impact it has for you guys and the amount of resources it takes for us to build it. And so, so to answer your question directly, Stephen, and to those who respond to that, we are very much looking into this, and we hope to have maybe some news on where this might fit into the roadmap very soon. So some other SMUG posts. We had a great post from Ryan talking about billing statements. And he had mentioned that, hey, when I'm doing a billing statement, I don't see any attachments for the billing statement in the email editor. And This is actually something that I'm wondering if maybe we can find a better way to kind of notify the user as to what's happening. But basically, when you're going through the billing statement process, you're most of the time sending billing statements to multiple users. You can send it to an individual, of course. But when you're going through the main billing statement process, you're sort of sending it to everyone who owes you money, right? And so the email editor doesn't actually show the individual attachments, because what it does is it creates those when you actually send it. Like the server on the back end basically says, okay, I need to send it to Bob, Adam, Steve, and Joe. And it goes through each of those and basically generates the billing statement and then attaches it to that email and sends it off. And so while the UI for the email editor doesn't show that, when you hit the send button, it will absolutely send those billing statements there. So thank you, Ryan, A, for the questions. We could educate everyone on how that process works, and B, for letting us know that, hey, there is a little bit of confusion here. Maybe we can improve the UI there. So appreciate that. The next one, I'm actually going to dive into a feature focus here in a second, but I wanted to kind of go over the post first. So Daniel mentioned that his routes were showing the incorrect totals for each day. And was wondering why. And first off, some people jumped in and helped, and I'm going to always point it out. Longtime listeners know I will always do this. But John and Brett both jumped in and explained that, hey, depending on the work type that you're doing, and if it's spread out over multiple routes or multiple days, the totals get calculated differently to try to give you an accurate number of what the actual revenue is per day. So I will show this here in just a second in the feature mention, but I did want to shout out Daniel for asking the question and John and Brett for helping to answer it. So I think this is one that is going to be beneficial from kind of some visual side. So I wanted to kind of make this the feature mention while I was going through the Ask SMUG. So let me just share my screen here really quick and show you guys what I'm talking about. So I'm going to just kind of make this the feature mention is routes and route totals as a whole. So I can kind of go through a few things here. I'm looking back in June because I'm lazy and I had a bunch of appointments scheduled back in June. So just using that day. So don't judge me too hard, guys. Basically what we're talking about here are these totals appear at the top. So you can see that I've got a route total and a day total. And I'm just looking at one particular route. But if I look at all resources, you can see now that I've got Adam did 630, Bob did 2,500, and total we did this, right? So you can use this to kind of, well, I wouldn't say this is something you should use for like your end of the day or week or month or quarter accounting. It's really just so you kind of know on a day what your route is pulling in. It can also lead to some really interesting kind of sales goals and things like that that you can do for your team. So how do we set these up? How do we use them? Etc. That's kind of what I wanted to go into. So first and foremost, I'm going to click into a route just so you guys, if you're unaware, some of the things you can do on a route. So first and foremost, I can set kind of the color and the icon. So if I have like a sales icon, I can do a person. If I have an actual truck, I can do this. If I have something that's like maybe rug pickup or something like that, I can do the little car. The route color is also what's going to show up on the map. So if I pull up the map here, see how this has these different colors here, the green, the red, or sorry, the blue and the red, that indicates the route itself that it's pulling from. So if you have a bunch of routes, I highly recommend you have them as different colors. It'll make this easier to read. Second off, I can set default technicians. So if you have technicians who on your route are typically the ones running that van, you can set defaults here to save yourself some time. Name is obvious. Contact information is something that can help you. So on and so forth. And what the default duration is, again, it's a time saver, right? If the majority of your jobs for this route to 2.5, 3 hours, you can set that as that and then adjust as needed, but it'll save you some time. You might be wondering what these little tags are. This is another advanced feature that I wanted to point out here. If you have tags for the kind of work that this van or truck does, so example, this I've got carpet, pressure washing, tile and grout. So I've got kind of this truck can kind of handle it all. But if I close out of here, this little drop down that I had, I can look at routes specifically. So I can look at just the Adam route. I can look at all resources like we just were. I can also look at these groups. And so that tagging system allows me to group. So who can clean carpet? Cool. So like this is especially useful if you've got highly differentiated workforce and you've got certain trucks that do certain work. When you're on the SCUD, you can say, okay, this is a carpet job, so only show me the trucks that are carpet, or this is a tile and grout job, so only show me the trucks that are tile and grout. You can easily swap between those both here and on the quick add. Let me just show that really quick over here. I'm in the quick add, I have those exact same options, right? So if I go into the appointment up here at the top, I have those exact same options. This can greatly help if you've got specialized work and need to only look at the schedules that are pertinent. Okay. Last but certainly not least, we have some additional options over here on the left. Advanced. This is really just so if you need to update appointments scheduled to the route. So like if you're changing who the technicians are, if you're updating for a specific day. So let's say you've got someone who's out sick, you need to update for a day, right? You can update that. You can update for a date range. So again, make sure if someone's maybe out for a week, you can update for that date range, who the technicians are. You can also just say, hey, this technician quit, no longer with us, update all future technicians to be that person, right? And arrival windows. This is a deeper feature, so I want to get too deep into this, but if you're using arrival windows, you can also set what those arrival windows are at the route level. So you can turn them on for the entire schedule, but you can also say for this route, the arrival windows might be a little bit different, right? And so you can set those arrival windows at the route level specifically. So, okay, so that's kind of the route side of things. And let's get into what you guys are actually curious about, which is the route totals. If I go into the schedule settings here, and I go to display, there are a bunch of options in here. How the week shows up, how the routes are named, icons, etc. But there are two things here. First and foremost is the show per route total. So that's this total right here that's showing the, like at the route level, how much are they pulling in? And then there's the daily route total, right, which is showing the total up top. And then you have two options. You have the primary display of selected routes or all active routes. What do we mean by this? Well, if I set this to all resources, you guys remember that, hey, the daily total is actually $3,200. So you can choose as you're cycling through these views, do I want this daily total to show me the entire day for all routes, no matter what view I'm looking at? So basically just showing you what the day is. So if your goal is $3,000 to make sure you've hit that, you can turn the setting to all resources. If you want it to adjust based on your view, so like, hey, if I'm looking at two routes, I want it to show the two routes. I don't want to necessarily show what all 8 routes are showing or something like that. So you have the option to do either of those. Again, selected routes or all active routes at all time. And you can toggle these settings on or off. So if maybe you don't care about the per route totals, you only care about the daily, then you can go ahead and do that. I'll refresh my schedule and and I no longer something wrong there. But this little section here would not show. I don't know why it's being sworn to me. I'm just gonna refresh the page here. There you go. Just need to refresh. To jump back, you can see I no longer have those totals there. I only show the entire day. So you have both options. Now, the second part of this, as I turn that back on, the second part of this is what the question that came in through SMUG was, is why are my numbers different? Well, there are a couple of things that this keys off of. First and foremost, I've got this invoice here for Dan Austin. If this took multiple days, like let's say that this, if I made a copy of this appointment and I moved it to this day, it's going to split that work between both days. So we have $230 on this day, $230 on this day. It's going to split that in half and add that 115 to this, 115 to this, because it's basically saying, hey, the work took 2 days and we only pulled in $230. So we're doing our best to estimate that total over the 2-day period. It's also going to not show work or estimate type appointments. So remember, when we're looking at the appointment, there are different appointment types. Estimate is a core one. You can also create whatever types you want, but estimate shows up automatically when you are scheduling that on-site estimate kind of sales quote. This does not get included on the revenue. So if you're saying, because all of it's hypothetical revenue at that point, once it's actually been updated to a work appointment, that's where you actually see that total take into account. So if you have, for example, let's just do an easy one. You have $1,000 invoice, and you have a sales estimate on Monday, and the work starts on Wednesday and ends on Thursday. You'd have 3 total appointments. The sales estimate would not be included in that total. The work would each be $500 on both of those days. So that's how it's set up by default. That's kind of the reasoning behind it. Now, what I ask you guys as I close this off is, if you would be interested in having more control over how that calculation is set. So maybe some settings that are tied to that. So you can sort of control what work types maybe cause the split or are ignored. And any sort of other settings like that, maybe estimate type, order type, um, routes. You could exclude certain routes, whatever it might be. So as you watch this, if you have any kind of inclination one way or the other that you feel strongly about, why don't you let us know and we'll take that into account. It's been something we've talked about internally for a little while. So, but with all that said, I hope that makes sense. And I also hope that you guys maybe learned something about routes and the route totals in general there. Love showing you guys certain parts of the system, especially those that might not get used all the time. So hope that it was useful. I also, again, want to shout out that client retention video. If you guys are interested in watching that, reminder that some of you guys will be getting some communication next week about a big announcement. So be on the lookout there. And that the support team itself is going to be closed on Tuesday the 16th for internal training. If you guys send an email, we'll be keeping an eye on that, but calls will be off for the day. So hope everyone is doing well. Again, I hope everyone had a happy 4th of July, and I hope you all have a great, strong end of the month as we are midway through the summer now, and hope you guys are making that money. So till next time, guys, take care. Hope everyone's having a great time. Thank you.